Do you want to know why most people will never reach their potential and the simple fix that this coach swears by? What if you had a key to unlock your limitless potential and lead a life beyond your wildest dreams? Well, today's guest has made it his life mission to show people how. Today, I'm honored to speak with Mark Fournier, widely recognized as the Limitless Coach. He is a 3-time Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, psychotherapist, and life mastery and peak performance coach who's dedicated his life to helping others unlock their greatest potential. As the founder of Limitless University, the visionary creator of Omni Coach, which is the world's first 100% AI-powered virtual and business coach, and the director of the Do Good Hero Support Network, Mark's mission is nothing short of creating a better world by raising human consciousness. He's also a patented inventor, award-winning, best-selling author, columnist, and keynote speaker whose groundbreaking insights are transforming lives. In this episode, he shares the secrets to leading a limitless life, breaking past the barriers that hold us back, and unlocking the hero within. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and motivated by one of the most visionary leaders I've ever sat down with. His story of overcoming and triumph are going to inspire, encourage, and change you. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Hero Up, the podcast that inspires and challenges you to step up and become heroic in all areas of your life. I'm your host, Tony Stark Polici, and it's my goal to give you practical, actionable advice and insights into copywriting, mindset, lifestyle, and impact. On this show, we'll explore how to create compelling and persuasive marketing messages, and I'll give you clever tips to make you stand out as a hero. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, a coach, or a creative, this podcast is for you. So, let's dive in. All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the Hero Up podcast. You just heard the amazing intro to my guest today, Mark Fournier. Mark, thank you so much for being here. I'm extremely excited about the conversation we're going to have today.
Thank you, Tony. I'm absolutely looking forward to every moment of it.
So I want to start just, with a very basic question. Kind of tell me, right now, you've done so many amazing things, and we're going to get into that. But right now in your life, who are you and what is it that you do?
Okay, well, yeah, that's general enough to let me slip in whatever I'd like. But
yeah.
Who I am, obviously, just a fellow traveler looking for ways to create a life that's filled with happiness and meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And what I do is, of course, help others with the same quest, help them find greater happiness and fulfillment and meaning in their life, help them gain greater balance in their life. And my typical client for my one-on-one coaching, because I only coach one-on-one, no more than 10 people at any given time. And so that's a fairly kind of an exclusive group. And they're mostly, and I didn't seek this out, they came to me, it's turned out to be mostly millennial entrepreneurs. I think that the combination of the entrepreneur side of them knows that I can help them with their business, and which ends up causing my fees to be free because I make them enough money where it pays for my coaching fees. But most of them are also, they've sacrificed a great deal to become, because most of them, they're higher or ultra high net worth individuals. So most of them have made great sacrifices to reach a point where their net worth is $100 million or whatever it may be. And I mean, we're talking about guys at 32 and they're like, I've got all this money, I've got all this stuff, and I'm still not nearly as happy or as fulfilled as I thought I'd be. I don't get it. What's wrong? And so there's quite a bit of that going around where people are finally reaching that point saying something's missing still. And I don't know what it is or how to fix it. But then I also get the clients who just say, I've done all these great, wonderful, exciting things, but they hit a glass ceiling and they're just so excited and just wanting to know how much further could I go. And so they'll be asking for that. And of course I get my share of clients who are dealing with some crisis or aberration that they've never been able to conquer, and they'll come in for that. But that's that finite group. The interview we're doing today is because, but what about the rest? There's 8 billion people on this planet. And I used to do quite a bit of speaking. And as you get older, you start realizing, wow, there's just only so much you can do. And I felt that I could be a lot more effective if I started reaching the public through electronic media, so to speak, and other means. So hence podcasts, things of this nature, rather than having my own. I do interviews with amazing hosts like you, and hope that we get the word out. So every question you ask, I'll be looking for in my own mind's eye. How can I turn my answer into a lesson that might make a difference in the lives of the audience?
Well, speaking about making a difference, one of the things that really excited me about having you on the show was this attitude of yours of unlimited possibilities. And you just covered that, you work with a lot of high net worth individuals, high achievers who've accomplished a lot when it comes to, what the world defines as successful. I'm sure there was a point in your life where that wasn't the case, that you were working with people that maybe were successful, but not at the same level. But this attitude of possibility thinking, it seems to me that there's like a polarization in kind of the general mindset, that there's a group of people that are now in this camp where, anything is possible and they're seeing things in a different way. And then there's this camp of people who are still defeated. Your attitude of unlimited possibilities, tell me a little bit about where that comes from.
Well, it's from my mom. I know it sounds almost cliche or maudlin, my mom, but it was. She was, to this day, one of the most enlightened beings I've ever known. And I've interviewed the Dalai Lama. I've been around some pretty enlightened beings. I don't know where it came from. I mean, her father was worked in a Buick factory, and her mother was a hairdresser. And somehow my mom was just this enlightened being. And she read everything. I mean, she studied every philosophy, every religion, and she kept asking, what is reality? I mean, we're talking about 60 years ago. I had this, high school educated mother trying to understand the nature of reality. And this is what I was raised on. But she had come to some conclusions before I was probably even born, which was that because it stemmed from a quote, lots of pundits have taken credit for this. Henry Ford, they've attributed it to Epictetus. It goes back and back, but it's the idea that anything man can conceive and believe, man can achieve. And it's a cliche, but if you break it down and you say, well, what if this is true? What if anything we can conceive and believe we could achieve? Well, break it down further. What are we capable of conceiving? Anything. Our ability to imagine or create a thought or a concept in our mind is absolutely limitless. That is as close to perhaps being God as we'll ever come, is that we have the godlike ability to create within our mind. So, all right, so anything we can conceive anything. The second thing is anything we can believe. Well, I sat next to a flat earther on a plane flight once, and she proceeded to explain to me how we got it wrong and how the earth is flat. And I realized in that moment that there is absolutely nothing we can't believe. I mean, look at the social media, look at the political environment, look at this division, and both sides absolutely positive that they're right. So we can conceive anything, and we can believe anything, meaning, of course, that if this statement is true, then we truly can create anything. And that was how I was raised, where kind of like a kid gets taught, Santa Claus is coming. And at some point, 10, 11, 12, you find out there's no Santa Claus. Well, my mother never taught us there's no Santa Claus. So I was raised with the idea that that childlike concept that of believing in fairy tales, believing that there is a physical manifestation or proponent of all these things we learn as kids, fire-breathing dragons. Well, there was some manifestation of these things in the real world. I don't mean on a woo-woo level. I just mean that I transitioned from childhood to adult, keeping one thing intact, which is that anything is possible. And so maybe the Santa Claus doesn't have a beard, but maybe there is such a thing as a Christmas spirit. Maybe the spirit actually is embodied in all of mankind, and we just need to find ways of bringing that to the surface more than once a year, and so on. So that was a long answer to a short question, and certainly not a soundbite. I apologize for that.
Oh, that's great, because what a gift your mother gave you by modeling this. And see, I love that you kind of set that up by referring to her humble beginnings, like, high school education. It wasn't like she's a Harvard graduate with, multiple letters behind her name and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that it really, education, formal education, right, doesn't really have an awful lot to do in every case with someone's ability to be limitless and to
Absolutely.
think in a different way. And, what a gift. I'm sure your mother must have modeled a lot of different things to you and given you practical like lessons and statements that carried you into your life. So that's amazing.
In fact, I love that you mentioned that. She did. She exemplified her beliefs and philosophies. And I love teaching my clients, parents, that kids may not be great at listening to their parents, but they're brilliant at imitating them. And so it's like, it's not what you tell them, it's what you show them. And show them whatever behaviors that you want them to emulate. Don't be surprised when your teenager starts yelling and screaming at you when they're upset, if you've been yelling and screaming at them for the last 13 years when you were upset. And so she definitely created or provided a model for me to follow. I got to see her living these principles.
My parents, my mom passed when I was 8, so I don't have a lot of memories of her, but obviously my father, there were certain things that he used to say. Unfortunately, my dad didn't have the same kind of outlook on experience of life that it sounds like your mother did. He was quite negative, quite critical. So I brought, some of those negative messages into my life, and those are the things that I've had to work to overcome and let go of. Can you think of one statement, but he also had some really positive things too that stuck with me. Can you think of one statement, something that your mom used to say that maybe you now pass on to people?
Absolutely. I could go on and on. She was great at that. Spaced repetition. She had so many things that she would that one of them, cancel, thoughts are things. She's been telling me that since I was 5 years old. And at the time I had no idea what that meant. So if she heard you issuing any kind of a limited statement, okay, any limited statement, any victim statement, that cancel. So that meant, cancel that thought, cancel that belief. Thoughts are things. Since we live in the mind, you start thinking these things and they will manifest in one way or another. And so just that alone was ultimately life-changing once I understood what it meant.
That is so powerful.
Yeah.
Just imagine.
If my siblings ever end up seeing this interview, they'll be laughing, going, cancel, thoughts are things, because we all heard it 1,000 times.
I just imagine the power, how life-changing that would be for like our world if every kid learned stuff like that. If we learned early on from the very onset how powerful our thoughts are. There used to be a training organization here in Mesa that my brother and I went through all of their courses. I don't remember one of them. I think it was Creating Your Future, but there was a quote in there and it was like, one of the consummate truths of life is that what you think about, the most you become. And it was like,
we're going to probably get to that at some point. This is kind of what it's leading to as my mother exposed me to these brilliant insights. She gave me this album, which is The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And it's about As a Man Thinketh. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And that was what set me off on my journey, was learning about consciousness and about the human condition. And so I'm so sorry for interrupting, but I pulled this out for our interview just in case it came up, because I thought it was on a album. It's on vinyl. Yeah. I was 12 years old, so I've been exposed to this principle. So please continue. It's great that you're bringing it up.
Yeah. If now people can go online and watch that on YouTube at any time, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're listening to this and you've never heard Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret, what is it, about 6-8 minutes long? It's not long.
I think it's a little longer. It may be 20 minutes, but it changed my life beyond recognition. This idea, as a man thinketh, so is he, William James, and the idea that we become what we think about all day long. That phrase blew up, and people started to realize that it's not just a philosophy, So, oh my God, I love that you're bringing this up.
And you know, that book by William James that you just mentioned, I mean, that is a thin book, maybe 60 pages,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's in my treasured library of the greatest works of all time. That book is in there.
Yeah, you can pick it up for like $5. I
Yeah.
mean, it's an
Yeah.
amazing book. Right?
Everyone should read it. It should be required reading by fifth grade. You should have been required to read that book.
Yeah, you know, I was fortunate that so I raised two stepsons, I raised two sons of my own, and now I have two stepdaughters. But between my stepsons and then my boys being born, I had like this major transformation in the way that I thought, and I was exposed to all of this motivational stuff and
Positive psychology. Sure.
yeah, Jim Rohn. Anyway, the point is this: the difference in how I spoke to my stepsons versus how I spoke to my sons, right? Like I had my kids reading Think and Grow Rich when they were 12.
That's when my mother gave it to me. Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics, and The Strangest Secret. I love that you said that. Wow. 12 years old was the exact same year.
And I think that my boys are like miles ahead of where I was when, you know, at this point, my oldest natural son is 26 and my youngest is 24, sorry. And like they're way ahead of where I was at that age.
For you, and you've succeeded.
Yeah, you know, it's like I think the goal is to, you know, raise children that are better equipped than we were to learn from our mistakes. So,
yeah,
obviously, your mom set you up well for that, and this is all going back to my thought about wouldn't it be amazing if some of these things were, like you mentioned, required reading or principles that every child was exposed to. So,
yeah,
my gosh, there's so many things that we can talk about, and
no,
we're going to keep going down there. But what is the thing that you're most focused on right now in your life? What matters to you? I know that you said getting your message out to as many people as possible and being able to, instead of just work with, you know, a handful of clients one-on-one, being able to share your wisdom and your knowledge and your experience with as many people as possible. Is there anything else?
Sure. Oh yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, you know, the old bit, put the mask on yourself first. So it's got to start with my own life, which really comes down to balance. I'm definitely a balance guy. I've broken our lives down into 10 different areas. Most of my clients don't have balanced lives. They maybe are, you know, through the roof in career satisfaction, in financial security. But how did they get to that point so early in life? They sacrificed their health and fitness, or their mental and emotional well-being, or their relationships, or their marriage. And so for me, it's so easy to get caught up in, because I'm an ambitious guy. I've got big plans. I've got a bucket list of a mile long. Literally, it's like 300 pages. Wow. And I know I'll never get to them all. And so it's making sure I don't get caught up in one of those 10 categories at the detriment of the others. And so it's trying to keep all areas of my life balanced. Before the interview, I mentioned pickleball. Well, I'm not going to make any money in pickleball. I'm not that good. I'll never get a sponsor. And so it would be so easy as an entrepreneur, a businessman all my life, to say, you know what, I need to work on this new thing. Or as a guy who wants to create a better world. I mean, my mission statement is, speaking of limitless, is to raise human consciousness on a global scale. Well, that's pretty big. That could take a lot of time. It'd be easy to get swallowed up and say, that's all I have time for. Or my coaching clients, it's all I have time for. It's why I only have 10. So I can give them the time they deserve, right? But I'm also able to say, yeah, but if I'm not well, if I don't take care of my body, this machine that carries my consciousness around, then I can't do the other things as well. So I'm going to play some pickleball. I'm going to stay in shape. I'm going to get my dopamine this morning. And doing that in all areas, gardening, going out in the back and growing herbs. Well, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to buy them at the grocery store. But I know that I need those moments of peace and calm. So making sure that my life stays in balance, because it won't stay. You'll start to get out of sync, throughout your whole life, but trying to get it in balance and trying to keep it as balanced as possible for as long as possible is one. After that, it's yeah, it's taking really great care of my clients because they fund the rest of my ambitions, which is back to raising human consciousness on a global scale. I spend a lot of time thinking about it and trying to figure out, wow, okay, it's not, can I do it? What I teach is ask, how can I? Because your subconscious, if you ask, well, can I even do this? The subconscious will go, I don't know. And you end up in this limbo. But when you ask your subconscious, how can I? It assumes, oh, apparently it's possible. And it'll start looking for the answers. And that's when you are watching a movie or reading a book or in the middle of a dream and you go, boom, why don't I just do this? That's how the podcast interviews came up. It was, I started playing around with social media marketing. I'm a typical baby boomer, techno peasant. And I mean, I had a marketing and ad agency with my film company, but I'm a traditional marketing guy. My brain just doesn't want to make the switch. I've got 3 followers, maybe I'm sure a few more, but I could not build a social media marketing platform in the way that I wanted. And as I was trying to figure it out, I thought, you know what can I do? Which is another one of the questions I ask as I teach my clients how to stay out of being a victim. No matter what happens, you ask, what's great about this? And then you figure out, well, what do you want? Well, I want this outcome. Okay, how can I get to this outcome? And the third one is, okay, maybe I can't do this, but what can I do? And I thought, well, I can do interviews. I don't have the system set up and so on, but I could just be a guest on the shows of others and I can reach people that way. So that was one of those things that just snapped in my brain out of nowhere because my subconscious was looking for, but well, what can I do? How can I get the message out? So those are the 3 areas. Obviously, having a balanced life, the subset of that is my priorities being, my relationships, family, health, and all the things that, are subsets of that. So another long answer.
You mentioned, I've spoken with some, industry experts, names that people would recognize, and they've said that this concept of work-life balance doesn't exist. And, my answer to that is, well, I don't know that it exists every day in every moment,
Right.
but that is what I'm striving for.
Yeah.
And, living in a constant state of chaos and mismanagement is no place to live. You mentioned most of your clients have sacrificed something, and we'll talk about sacrifices at some point in this interview, but there's things that we can sacrifice that we may never get back. And looking back on those things,
time with our children as they're growing up and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So asking those questions, asking better questions is, I think, really key. You mentioned, and I love what you just brought up, Mark. What can I do? Right?
Yeah.
If you want to succeed on social media, there's some proven formulas. I can't post 9 times a day on Instagram, including reels and lives. I just don't have the bandwidth for that. If that's what it takes to succeed, ain't gonna happen. But you mentioned your career in film, and I know that you've won 3 Emmys. So first of all, how do you win an Emmy?
There they are.
How do you win an Emmy?
We have OCD. Having OCD. That's what does it.
OCD?
Well, yeah. It's when you've created something and it's good. And everybody's like, all right, good job. Let's go home. And you go, no. I can do better. Wait. And you stay up till 3:00 in the morning and the editor's ready to kill you. Or you're on the set and your DP is ready to kill you. You're like, move the lights. I need the set. Or your gaffers, it's like, but I don't like the way these shadows are falling. Same thing as, in the edit suite, it's like, it's a half a frame off. Let's just do this. Just this is going to make a difference. They roll their eyes like, yeah, right. It's going to make a difference. And so part of it was literally, so yes, I do have ADHD and OCD. So it's an interesting combination, but I don't use it as an excuse. I capitalized on it. I harness it. And because people go, well, what, isn't that just a bad thing? I go, no. It's a bad thing if you have it and you don't know you have it. Right. Because then you believe that all the things you're obsessing over, you believe that they really matter. Once you know you have it, you can say to yourself, this doesn't really matter. This is just my OCD blowing it up. Now I can decide whether to continue doing it just because I think that maybe this will end up giving the client a better product, or I can say, you know what, I'm just going to let this go. This is silly. So the OCD component did make a difference. The other is you as a writer will appreciate this. I used to say I already know what's going to win an award before I ever roll a single foot of film, because the concept was so strong. The script was so powerful. I could look at it and say, this message is going to blow people away. My job's just to make sure it looks as good on film as it does in my head. And so almost every award I have ever won, I already knew. Oh, well, this will win an award. I just have to make sure I execute properly. So did that come close to answering your question?
That's great, because like you identified what the criteria was to actually get the result, and then you, in a way, maybe reverse engineered it. Is that right?
Yeah. I got to a point where I wouldn't roll film until I could say, and this will win an award. In the beginning, of course, I wanted the awards because for self-acceptance, I wanted to prove to myself that I was special, that I was good at something. Then I wanted the awards so that I could prove it to clients because it was good for business. It built credibility. And I eventually got to a point where I just stopped competing, because it's like, okay, I have enough awards for that. And I know who I am now, because it came much later. The awards were, decades ago. And then the only awards I cared about were humanitarian awards, ones that were like, thank you for the contributions you made to, child abuse or whatever it might be. So my motives changed over time as well.
Yeah, it's interesting how life does that to us. The things that we think are really important, once we accomplish them, or sometimes even if we don't, perspective shifts with time and wisdom, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let me ask you about this. In that obsessive need to create something that's going to win an award, did you ever do anything outrageous to get like the perfect shot?
I've done a lot of outrageous things to get the perfect shot. Risked life and limb. I can't count the number of times that I was doing something to get a shot, and afterwards I thought, what the hell was I thinking? I could have been killed doing that. Hanging out of cars for, flying down the freeway and, hanging out of cars with cameras. And I do have one, in fact, thinking about racing down the freeway. Since we're both here in the same town, you'll appreciate this. So we have ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, and this was some time ago. They were trying to promote carpooling. And so we have the carpool lane, as you know. And that was whether it was carpooling or taking the bus. They were really wanting to promote that. And so they hired I had a television commercial division. And so they hired us to do a campaign around this. And I chose the tortoise in the hair as my method of teaching this, of telling this or communicating this message. And so we brought in some incredible makeup artists from California. I had them make all of these masks that made for tortoise masks and gloves and so on, and all out of latex. And we had this guy who we turned into a rabbit and put him in a Volkswagen Rabbit with the top down. So I've got my rabbit and a rabbit. And it shows him rushing in and out of the house, trying to get in his car and rushing down the road. And then it shows 4 of these tortoises. So the tortoise in the hair, the 4 tortoises just, hey, buddy, how you doing? They get in the car, 4 of them together. And then it also shows a bus with a bunch of tortoises getting on that. And they're just taking their time and driving. And we've all had this happen. The rabbit is rushing, and he pulls up to a red light and has to screech on his brakes. And the tortoise, driving at speed limit, just slowly catches up. And then the bus catches up, and then the rabbit takes off to the next one, gets up to another red light, and the tortoise. So no matter how fast he's going, he can't get there any faster than the tortoise in the hare. So finally, we end up on the freeway, and the shot required having. I apologize for the length of this, but I think it'll be worth it, because it teaches a story about what I call opportunity mindset. We've been talking about a limitless mindset, which is the actual belief that we are truly limitless. So, what's your moonshot? Elon Musk has that. He also has opportunity mindset, which is an absolute belief, a conviction that everything is an opportunity, and that there are no exceptions to that. That's the mindset. You could even say, I don't have any problems if you have a true opportunity mindset, because a problem, that's just an unexpected outcome that we label as being a problem. But with an opportunity mindset, you don't see it that way. You go, well, this isn't what I expected. So, all right, what's great about it? How can I, right? Well, what can I do? And so this was a perfect example of that. So here we are. The shot required that this rabbit gets on the freeway and he slams right into a traffic jam. And while he's sitting in the traffic jam, like, oh man, this is just horrible. The carpool tortoises go by and wave as they're driving by him, and the bus goes by and they wave driving by, and that was the shot. The problem was, by the time we got to the freeway, the traffic had let up. There were no traffic jams. So we're trying to figure out how can we create a traffic jam. And we get a bunch of our production vans, and because we've got a big production truck with the big cameras shooting all these shots, and we're trying to get out on the freeway, and we're driving slowly, hoping a few cars will back up behind us so we could, fake the shot somehow, aim down with the camera so you can't see that the traffic jam's only 6 cars deep. And so now we're having to pull over the bus. We're having to pull over the other turtles, tortoise, and now it's getting hot. It's Arizona, and so it's getting hot. They're getting on and off the bus. Somebody sees this. They call 911 and say that there are a bunch of masked men robbing or taking over a bus on the freeway. All these police cars start coming down the freeway. They see this bus. They see these tortoises. They see us in the middle of the freeway blocking traffic. This car with a rabbit in it blocking, and they're pulling over. Sirens going everywhere. And I don't just write and direct this thing. I produced it, which means if I don't get this shot, I'm in big trouble. I paid a fortune to set this shot up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's going through the going down the tubes. And of all these cops, one of them hops out. And he was the quintessential, right out of Smokey and the Bandit. The brown outfit, like a motorcycle cop with a puffy pants and the big rimmed hat with the mirrored aviator glasses. And he's just pissed off. He's, what the hell? And all the other cops are kind of hanging out, slowly figuring out on their own, this must be some kind of a movie or something going on. They're off in the background getting their pictures taken next to the tortoise and stuff. But this guy's furious, and he's writing us tickets. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm doing this for you. It's for ADOT. And he goes, we're not ADOT. We're public safety. And he's going, where's your licenses and all this stuff? I said, well, we didn't get them because I thought you guys were all on the same team. And so I'm going, oh, shoot, I don't have a license to do slow traffic on the freeway. And so, but he's also giving us tickets for jamming up traffic, some other things that I didn't understand. And so he's standing over there writing a ticket to the rabbit. The rabbit's in full costume. We had made it so that his ears could go up and down. And I got this guy in this perfect costume, and now traffic is backing up, and he's writing a ticket. And I go, oh my God. I said, roll film, start rolling. And we start getting footage of this cop writing him this ticket. And I tell the automatic guy, I said, make his ears go down while he's getting this ticket. And then the big thing happened when I thought, I've got to get this shot. This is going to be so much better than what I thought. In addition to the tortoise, going by him and the whole bit, and him getting stuck in the traffic, he's even going to get a ticket because of his erratic thing. And we're going to actually end on the shot of him instead of the tortoise waving. That was the end shot. We're going to end on the shot of him getting this ticket and his ears go down. So I walk up to the cop, and everybody's like terrified of this cop. And I just walked up there and decided I'm going to play the part of that crazy, excited director. And I go, oh my God, this is the shot. This is incredible. And the guy's looking at me and he's like, what the hell are you doing? I said, you've got to be in this. Because I'd already explained by then what we were doing, but he didn't care. You've got to be in this thing. You're going to make this whole video. And he looks at me, and my crew's all standing like, you're going to get your ass thrown in jail, man. He's going to think you're trying to bribe him or something. But I was desperate. And he looks at me and he goes, should we do it with the glasses on or off? And my guys are like, oh, no way. This guy not only gives us all the shots, he lets me get approaching up angle shots at him as he's walking up to the rabbit. But when we're done, he takes all these other police cars and they go across all 5 or 6 lanes, whatever it was in that area, and they give me my traffic jam. They're driving like 20 miles an hour for about a mile while my camera's going. And now we got this long backup shot. So there's a long answer again, but boy, it was
amazing. I remember seeing this.
it was a great commercial. It actually ran for a long time.
I remember seeing it. I've been in the Valley since 1982. So
yeah. Oh yeah, it would have been while you were here.
As you're talking about it, it's like my brain is firing going, oh my gosh, I remember seeing this. That's so great. That's so great. So what started out like it was going to be a total travesty turned into the best thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, I had like $100,000 into this thing, flying in people from out of state for the prosthetics. And I was about to get in big trouble. It turned out to be, one of my best commercials. It won a bunch of awards.
That's amazing.
And so classic opportunity was my brain just clicked into, I got to find a way to not only survive this, but to turn it into an advantage. Most people are just trying to survive. The ones who are taking these huge jumps and growing exponentially are the ones who do the opposite and say, I'm not just going to survive this, I'm going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's great. So this is an amazing, example of possibility thinking and just going for it in your life. So obviously, life isn't always like that. There's times when things don't feel quite great. Things don't go the way that we expect. And even though it's an opportunity, it may not feel like an opportunity at first. Have you had dark moments? Anything where maybe in spite of this amazing mindset that you developed as a result of your amazing mom, when you felt like giving up on your dreams, like something had to pull you back from the edge?
No, my life is perfect. Always has been. I wish. No, I don't wish, actually. How could I possibly make a difference in the lives of others if I didn't know what the heck they've been going through themselves, right?
Yep.
So, I went through a pretty protracted 5.5-year divorce, and I was in Illinois fighting for custody, and the mom always gets custody in Illinois, and I was like, I'm not having that. I'm going to get my kids. And so 5.5 years later, I finally walked away from everything because I was sick, and I just sold everything to keep financing the divorce and so on. And about 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And so here I was, because the divorce had reached a point where we were going into court like 2 and 3 times a week. We were, having trials, and I couldn't work anymore because I spent all my time answering depositions and so on. And so my business was pretty much non-existent. I'd lost everything by then. I'd lost our homes, or my homes, and savings, and now I got stage 3 cancer, and they operated on me kind of like an emergency operation, but it's stage 3. They don't know how far it spread. They didn't know if it was stage 4 at the time. And this was the day before Christmas. And so here I am on Christmas Day. It had happened so quickly that I didn't have time to get somebody to come and be with me. And a lot of my friends, and I was in Illinois at the time, and a lot of my friends in Illinois are Jewish, and so they're all out of the country for Christmas holidays. They'd left. My family was scattered around the country, but they all had family of their own who had all come in to see them for the holidays, so they couldn't leave. And so here I was on Christmas the next day, on Christmas Day, lying there, not knowing if I'm going to live or die, if I've got stage 4 or 3. My company's dead. My money's gone. And I was almost 60 years old at the time, going, and I was an early achiever. So I had bought my first house when I was 19. So I was used to being in a much better place. And it was in that moment when let's just say that we all kind of imagine the worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that could ever happen to me? And we're all terrified of that. We all think about, if I lost everything, if I lost my kids, and I never did get custody because they don't award custody to dads. We get just what's called visitation. And so to lose my family, my kids, my homes, everything, and to end up with cancer, it's like, well, yeah, that would be the worst day ever. But we think of it like this, worst case scenario, and that will destroy me, and that will be the end of me. And that was a mind shift, because the worst thing I could ever dream of happening happened, and I was still here. I wasn't destroyed. Hey, I wasn't really happy about it, right? But I was still here. And at that moment, I thought, so if this is the worst that things could ever get, and I'm handling it, then what have I got to worry about? And from that moment on, I charged forward in my life in every area fearlessly, knowing that no matter what happens, you see, everybody else is trying. Most people are trying to keep their frightening things from happening, thinking that if they can keep it from happening, then their life will be okay. But we can't control the world around us. And so we're in a constant state of fear. When is that bad thing going to happen? And I was released from that saying, that bad thing may or may not ever happen, but if it does, I'm good. Wow. What would you do with your life if you knew that no matter what happened, you'd be okay? What kind of risk would you take? Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That is amazing.
It's hitting rock bottom. I wish everyone on earth could hit rock bottom. My best clients are the ones who call me right after they've hit rock bottom because, man, they'll do whatever I ask. I'll be like, well, you got to do this and this and this. Okay, man, I got nothing to lose.
Well, there's a principle that I have discovered, I don't know how long ago. I wish I would have discovered it earlier than I did, which is fail faster.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love it. Fail often, fail fast.
Yeah. It's great. So this moment here, I had a very similar moment, and it's interesting that mine was around 51, where I went through not the same thing. Went through a divorce. I got to a point in my life where I felt like pretty much over. Like, what's next? And interestingly enough, from that point, it got so much better, like so much better than ever before. And I had a mind shift too. But for the people that are listening to this right now, I think it's important to really take in what happened here. There's a simple technique to deal with fear. What is it that I'm afraid of? Like, list it, get it out on paper, really take a look at it, and then ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And when you can see yourself on the other side of that, then all of that power that is behind that fear and those judgments and those limiting beliefs just dissipates.
You nailed it. You said on the other side of that. See, we think of worst case, and then that day the world ended. No, then you'll go to bed, you'll wake up, and there'll be, now that the worst case has happened, now you're on the other side of it. Now what? They don't go there. They don't go, oh, well, after that, what would you do? Would the world end? Well, no. Well, what would you do? And how would you learn from this? How would you grow? How would you build on that? And ultimately, I teach my clients, here's where you are, here's worst case scenario, and here's where you are after you've overcome worst case scenario. So even worst case scenario, you're going to end up better than you are right now. It's a no-lose scenario as long as you keep going after worst case. So I love that you said on the other side of it.
Okay, so this moment that you had, like on the other side of that, what have you achieved like since that point? Was it something that maybe you hadn't had on your 300-point bucket list previous, or were there new things? Did you create this 300-point bucket list after this divorce and the cancer experience? Or was there something that, you achieved that was just so amazing that you don't know you would have without having that revelation?
It's a great question. I think probably it was after that I did my best work. I had never been depressed in my entire life, so I couldn't work with people who were dealing with depression because I didn't understand it. So I got to experience that for a little bit during that whole process. And I got to see what that felt like. And I got to examine and explore it and look for ways out and so on. And I got to do it with anxiety I'd been dealing with most of my life. So that was one of the biggest takeaways, was I finally started understanding what's behind anxiety and how to conquer that. And again, it's the fear. It's not the fear that something bad will happen. It's the fear that you won't be able to handle it, because we already know bad things will happen. And so if you knew beyond a shadow of doubt that no matter what happened, you'd be fine, well, what would there be, what anxiety, would be left? And so I started writing new programming and scripts and, doing seminars that I think were on a much deeper and more enlightened level. Enlightenment that only comes through either experiencing it yourself, or hopefully somebody comes along and they're able to transfer their knowledge and insight to you without your having to have ever gone through it. But I gained so many insights through this suffering And I literally couldn't wait to get it all on paper. And so next thing I knew, I am like waking up in the middle of the night with 1,000 ideas, and it just snowballed into, oh my gosh, now that I understand more deeply. And I'd been coaching and training and doing seminars for years before any of this happened, thinking, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've got this down. I wasn't even close to where I was on the other side of this experience. And since then, I've had several other really challenging experiences that have moved me to another level. So I can tell you this, no matter where you are, there's always another level. It's, what is it? The more you know how little you know. And so I certainly gained much greater humility. There was a point where I thought, yeah, I'm the guy. I've got it. And then I've gotten to a point now where it's like, you know what? I don't think there is an end to self-discovery. I think that no matter how much we understand, there's always another level. And that excites me because now I'm always looking for what's that next thing that I didn't, that I still don't understand yet.
Yeah, that is so good. The struggle that you mentioned, like the new things that you came into or the challenges, is there something new that came up? Something that has impacted, you said that you did your best work after that.
Yeah.
New challenges came along. Have they affected or impacted the way that you coach, your philosophy in working with people?
Yes. Probably the biggest of all is I was once diagnosed with ALS. I used to say, whenever I'd be, whatever, however bad it is, well, it's not ALS. As in, as long as it's not ALS, I mean, it can't be that big a deal. And then all of a sudden I get diagnosed with the one thing that I couldn't wrap my arm or wrap my mind around. And so it turned out I have a very rare neurological disorder, cramped fasciculation syndrome. It mimics ALS. And so the good news is it doesn't kill you and it doesn't render you incapacitated. It's just very inconvenient. Sometimes your muscles will spasm so badly that it'll rip the muscle right off the bone. And so it can be unpleasant, but it's not ALS. So I wish everyone on earth could go 1 week thinking they have ALS. Because during that 1 week, my life started changing dramatically. I suddenly started realizing, okay, so ALS, you've got basically 2 years unless you go on a respirator, and then they can keep you alive, but you're Stephen Hawking. You can't move, you can't walk, you can't do anything else. And so I first start getting to decide, would I be one of those candidates for going on a respirator? Does that suit who I am? See, Stephen Hawking is pure intellect. That was just who he was. I'm an extremely physical being. I'm not just intellect. I mean, I'm always moving. I'm very kinetic, hyperkinetic, ADHD physically. And I realized, no, that's not something that I would sign up for. And so I decided, not from a victim state, but just simply quality of life state. I thought I wouldn't want to continue my life in that direction. Now, I could have been wrong, but at that time, I decided, okay, so I won't opt for a respirator. And so that meant I had 2 years to live because that's how long it takes usually from diagnosis until you're on a respirator. But of the last year, you can't move, you can't talk, you can't do anything. So you're just existing. So I thought, so technically I've got 1 year left. And at the end of that year, I found places for euthanasia. I could, to euthanize you. And in Europe, there were places I could go. So they would help me complete my journey. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to be pretty practical here. Okay, so I've got 1 year, and then I'll euthanize, and if that is a verb. And now what am I going to do during that year? And I'm now figuring out. And boy, I'll tell you what, it takes only a matter of minutes to start realizing I don't give a shit about this or this or this or that. I've got storage buildings with tons of stuff in them. I don't even remember. I don't care what's in those things. It was suddenly, there was just only not even a handful of things that were the only things I cared about. I wish everyone on earth could see that so we could keep our priorities where they belong, which always comes back to relationships, love, and so on. And in fact, my younger brother, that's what he does. He works with people in hospice and he helps them pass. And the stories they tell him about, how they feel and what they've learned and what they regret. I keep saying, you got to write a book about this, man. The world needs to know. But it keeps coming back to the same thing. We don't really regret the things we've done. We mostly regret the things we haven't done. And sure enough, I'm like going, oh my gosh, there are all these things on my list that I wanted to get done. But I'm not going there. I'm going to figure out, now, what can I do with my life, with what's left of my life? Then I go back in for the test a week later, because they say, well, we're going to repeat the test and so on. And after the test, they come back and go, oh my gosh, we found what's causing this. We didn't catch it because your disease is way more rare. And so we didn't have the markers to help us understand it. But the bottom line is, you don't have ALS. You're going to live. You will not die of this. Wow. From that moment on, I now had to add to my list of growth experiences, what would it be like if I lived every day of my life as though this were my last year? We can't say my last day, because, last day, well, you're not even going to bother eating. You're just going to be like, okay, I just want to do this. I got one day left. But your last year, that's time to actually do a lot of different things. And so what if I lived every day of my life like this is my last year? That changed everything. The biggest change was no matter what happens, it's not ALS. And I got to go back to that again on a much deeper level. So now I'm as close to living a fearless life as you can live. Because if it's ALS, well, I've already got it figured out, but that's pretty rare. I'm probably good. And anything else? It's nothing. Nothing compared to ALS. I'm good.
Wow. That's an amazing experience. My understanding is that the subconscious doesn't know the difference between like reality.
Absolute.
Right?
Absolute. Yep. It just believes whatever you tell it, and then tries to execute.
There's these exercises where we, feed these things into our mind. But the example that you're talking about, where I remember a story once, I don't know how true this is, whether they did an experiment, but they published a newspaper. It was a special printed edition of a newspaper that was just done as an experiment. And they put these individuals' lottery numbers as the winning numbers. And so the person got the paper and they looked for the lottery numbers. This is before you could go online and check all that stuff. And sure enough, they had won millions of dollars. Right? And then within an hour of getting this news, it was then broken to them, that they had been part of this experiment, right?
Oh.
And the shift that they experienced from suddenly believing this was a reality in their life to then recognizing that it wasn't. And the data and what people did as a result of this was fascinating to me. As you're telling this story, I don't know that we can imagine, maybe some other people can't. I've got a pretty good imagination, but
you're a writer.
I don't know that I can really put myself into a state. Well, I probably could. It would just require some real intention and focus. But believing that this is a reality, and then making all those preparations that you did and all those things that you thought about, and then suddenly somebody saying, oops, boy, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody could have an experience like that, where they really could have that visceral experience of believing this is it.
Yeah.
And then get a pass.
On an emotional level, not just an intellectual level.
Yeah. And that's the piece right there, is that intellectual. I can intellectualize something, but at some level, well, at the conscious level, I recognize that I'm playing a trick on myself. Yeah. So like the lottery experiment, which the people had no idea was being a trick on them, and what happened to you, which is not a trick, but just simply an oversight, really powerful lesson. And I'm sure that's something, because the thing about an emotional experience is that it stays with us. It changes, I think, our physiology.
Yeah. If you can tie emotion in with a lesson, you are infinitely more likely to remember it. I do it with my coaching clients. Is I give them an assignment, and an assignment that will ultimately evoke, not only do they experience, they actually get to act on it, experience it, but they get to feel it on an emotional level, because I know it'll sink in much more deeply.
Speaking of coaching, I know that you've worked with some really, famous people, big names. Is there something like a pattern or something that comes up an awful lot that you've discovered with people that someone on the outside, if they're looking and saying, oh, wow, you worked with so-and-so, that they would be surprised to know that that was the thing they were struggling with?
Yeah. For obvious reasons, I can't name names because, well, I can, but I wouldn't get any more of these special people because like,
Yeah, let's not call them out on the show.
so, right. If I want to keep getting them, I better keep that to myself. But I could tell you that consistently, people who are in the media, celebrities, people who reach celebrity status, whether it's movie stars and actresses and actors, or it's people who spend a lot of time at a podium with huge audiences and so on. Rarely does that happen by itself. Usually it takes tremendous commitment, conviction, drive, perseverance to get to the point where you are famous, where you are at a celebrity status in any field. And so the question really comes down to, well, what's driving them? What do they all have in common? Because all of these people are being driven. And I found a pattern. And it's exactly the opposite of what almost anyone would assume at first glance. But once I say it, they go, yeah, I guess that does make sense. And it is a lack of self-acceptance. They have low self-acceptance. They are trying to prove to the world that they're okay, that they're enough, that they're special in some way, that there's something about them that makes them worthy. And they're so desperate for that they will do whatever it takes, which is hence the drive, the perseverance, the never giving up. They stay on board with this, attempting for life to ultimately get the one thing that drives all of us, which is the desperate desire for validation. And so they are continually searching for validation. The problem is they're searching for it from others. And that's not a coincidence. It's what we were taught since the time we were children. Our parents taught us that it's up to them whether we're a good boy or a bad boy, doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's not up to me to decide whether or not I can play in traffic. Playing in traffic, bad. That's not okay. Giving the biggest cookie to your sister, good. That's okay. So we start to get to a place where it's like we're desperate to be told we're okay and terrified of being told we're not okay. And eventually it's not just our parents who have permission, but it's our family members, teachers, babysitter, the coaches, everybody but me gets to tell me if I'm okay. And so we've been programmed since birth to be desperately trying to prove to the world that we're okay so they'll tell us so. And of course, the problem is, even when they say it, well, did they say it because they mean it, or were they just humoring me? But they could change their mind tomorrow. But that person says it, but those 10 people don't. There's never an end to it. And so we never get fully satisfied. It's that like eating food that has no mass to it. It'll never fill us up until the day that we can accept ourselves and know that we're okay without somebody else telling us. So these celebrities are no exception to that. And so what I found is in one particular person, in fact, was getting her to realize that her entire life was as a form of compensation, trying to compensate for her lack of self-acceptance. Once she realized it, accepted it, and learned how to accept herself, she realized she didn't even like acting. She didn't like it at all. It was no fun for her. She wanted to do something completely different. She changed her entire life, changed her career, and if I mentioned names, you'd be like, I wondered whatever happened to her.
Mm.
And she said, I was doing this for the wrong reasons. I don't even like doing it. And so I got this. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-acceptance. And you know what's interesting? Because I know personally that I struggle with this. I wrestle with it.
Yeah.
It's like a nerd or a racket that creeps up in my life time to time. Some weeks I won't see it very much at all, even though I think it's hanging out in the background, but other times it's just right there. And the thing about self-acceptance is never quite knowing how to resolve that. Like here's what I'm getting at. When we achieve things in our lives, you mentioned earlier that this desire for validation and to be okay, right? Drives the most successful people.
Yeah.
And I've had people come to me and say, wow, man, what an amazing life you've had. and you've done all these things and you've overcome all these things. And as I'm sitting there listening to him, I'm going, I'm not really amazing. Like, I don't feel amazing. I don't think I'm amazing, right? Because I'm so caught up in what I haven't accomplished yet or what I haven't done yet. But it's this sense of somewhere along the line, I was told that I wasn't okay. I got the message that I wasn't okay. There was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so here's my question, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you find that flips the switch for somebody when it comes to self-acceptance? Is it always, do you find in the people that you work with at least, that it's always hanging out somewhere? Maybe it's not causing as much trouble, but it's just sitting there. Or are there people that flip the switch and they get it on the other side of that? And if so, what does it?
This is such a great question, and it's an important question. If self-acceptance, if a lack of self-acceptance is driving almost everything we do, from the houses we buy and the cars we buy and the clothes we wear to our facial hair, whatever it is, if that's driving all of these things, and the only solution to getting true control of ourselves is through self-acceptance, how on earth do we get that? What does it mean? What does it look like? And this was one of the greatest revelations of my life. It was that it's not about convincing myself that I'm special. It's about convincing myself that I don't need to be special. See, once you take that out, it's like, so I don't need to be anything. Well then, and I'm fine, I'm okay. And without doing or being anything special, I just have to be okay. Wait a minute, how does that work? And so I teach this phrase, it's, I'm okay, I'm not perfect. No one is, and that's okay. I'm doing my best to be my best, and that's enough. So that phrase drives my life, because I spent my whole life trying to be special. I mean, that's what drove, what was behind the awards and all the other stuff. Now they're only here just for credibility, just so people go, okay, so this guy's done stuff. All right, okay, maybe I'll listen to him. I'm just trying to create a listening. I don't believe for a moment that those things define me. But when I did them at the time, it was all about trying to be special. And especially I was a middle child, and all the things that drive this need to be something special. And so you have all these people going, looking in the mirror going, I am beautiful, I am beautiful. And let's say they haven't, based on, human standards, let's say they're average, but they're trying to say, I'm beautiful, I am special, I am wonderful. And their subconscious is going, no. I mean, I see all the pictures of people and I can compare myself relatively objectively. And so we're trying to hype ourselves up, and we never get there because we never buy into it. And so where we get all this great gain, the gains come from my clients who say, so I just get to be me with all my strengths and weaknesses. That's all I have to be, is who I am, to be enough. And being enough, being okay, that's plenty. It doesn't mean you won't do other things and strive and do all these other things, but you'll be doing it for the right reason. Everything I do that might be special or unique is because I want to make a difference. I want my life to be meaningful and purposeful, and it's a game. Remember, all our needs are met: water, food, shelter, and oxygen. So what's the point of getting out of bed after that? Your needs are all met. I don't need anything else. Well, it's because it's the game. So I live my life like I am here playing a game, and if I'm going to play a game, I want to play it all out. I want to really get into this game and really make the most of it. And so those are reasons why I do it, not to prove to myself that I'm okay. And I didn't say to prove to myself that I'm amazing and incredible and extraordinary. That's what is causing all these problems. Everybody thinks they need to be those things in order to be okay. What if you'll never convince yourself that you're extraordinary? Well, the secret is to convince yourself that you don't need to be. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
that is so powerful. That is so powerful. That's absolute gold, what you just dropped there. And I laughed as you said it, because I recognized my beloved wife, my dear sweet wife, who is probably the healthiest person I think I've ever met, without having to go through a lot of stuff to get there.
Yeah.
I asked her at one point, because I'm always striving, I'm always working to achieve something. I've always got a list of things to do, And I'm like, sweetheart, how are you just so happy and content all the time? She's like, because I'm just okay with my life. I don't need to be special. I don't need to get recognized. And it's like, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand that. I'm like, aren't we put here? I was approaching it from the wrong mindset. I wasn't approaching it from the fact that there's this self-acceptance issue there. I was approaching it from this belief that God put me on this planet to live my life and do something worthwhile, to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
And while that is true, we're all here to make a difference, but we can be miserable in the process of striving to do that.
So lots of martyrs out there making a difference and suffering every moment of it.
Yeah. So that is just absolute gold. I love that. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share something that could change lives. And anybody who's struggling with this answer, I'll just ask you, okay, so if you don't think that just being who you are is enough, who do you know that's perfect? Who do you know that was ever perfect? I don't even know if Jesus would have said he was perfect. I mean, how many mortals do you know? Because you could say, well, Jesus, I say, well, okay, first of all, if you're a Christian, okay, Jesus, hello, Son of God. Okay, so who else you got? All right, Son of God, that's it? So it's like, okay, I don't know anyone who's perfect. So why in the world do I keep striving for this? I don't know anybody who doesn't have issues. 10 bad, 10 good. I don't know anyone who doesn't have some kind of stuff. Look at their websites look at their social media feeds and they'll show you the best of the best. But by now we all know that's the best of the best. They don't look like that when they wake up and then end. So we know that everybody struggles and everybody's got things that they're proud of and things that they're not so excited or proud of. And it's in accepting not just your strengths, but your weaknesses. That's the real growth. It's in saying, I have some strengths and those are cool and I'm developing them. And I have some weaknesses. And hey, you can call it to my attention and say, well, you suck at this or that. And I'll go, yeah. What's your point? I won't apologize for it. It's like, well, yeah, I suck at that. What's your point? If I screw up and somebody says, you goofed that thing up, I'll go, yeah. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to try to keep from doing that. Well, you don't sound very upset. Well, I'm not. Why? Well, I didn't do it on purpose. Yeah, but you screwed up. Yeah, I know. What's your point? Being able to be in that mindset that, yes, I'm an imperfect human being. We're all imperfect. We have our miraculous sides. I mean, the children of God, call yourself what you like. I love to say we're all messy miracles. The messy with the emphasis on messy.
Love that.
And let that be okay.
Yeah. So this brings me to something I know. So tell me a little bit about Omni Coach, because I think it's tying into what you just talked about there.
Yeah. So part of my goal in terms of raising human consciousness, and I thought, well, I can't reach the whole world. How can I give every man, woman, and child on this planet access to the greatest minds that have ever lived, the greatest insights? Is there some way? Because the knowledge is there. It's been there. I mean, some of the things we're talking about, we barely touched on like the nature of reality, but I mentioned Epictetus. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago. He wrote, men aren't disturbed by the things that happen, but rather by their opinion of the things that happen. That has been around for thousands of years. What he said was, there is the things out there, but that's not what bothers us. We're not bothered because it's raining. We're not bothered because somebody's late for an appointment. We're bothered because of how we choose to view it. We're bothered by our lens. We've known this for thousands of years, and yet the whole world exists as if nobody knows this concept. We are living as if all that matters is what's out there, spending all of our lives and energies trying to manipulate the world around us instead of the world within, which is where all the power comes from. And so I realized that the principles are there. We just have to get them in the hands of more people. Obviously, there's better ways of explaining them. That's one of my strengths is as a writer like you, as a storyteller. I can take a very abstract concept, Schrodinger's cat, or the nature of things from quantum physics, and I can make it more easily understood. But ultimately, I wanted people to have access. So I created a program I'd actually been working on it for 30 years, but AI didn't exist at the time. And so I kept saying somehow something's going to come along, eventually realize it was AI that will make this thing possible. And so I created a coaching platform called Omni Coach that gives you access not to AI directly, because I also knew that AI was going to, I mean, if you ask AI, a 13-year-old, what's the best way to commit suicide? It'll say, well, you can do this or this or that, instead of, wait a minute, how come you want to commit suicide? Let's talk about that, right? So AI has got some serious flaws that may eventually be overcome. But in the meantime, I thought, what I want to do is I'm not going to use AI to coach people. I'm going to use AI to find the answers that have already been given by the greatest minds on earth. And so when you ask AI, you ask Omni Coach a question, it's going to search the database of all data ever entered. How many of the greatest minds on earth have addressed this topic? What did they have to say? Now, what did the other 100 have to say? And now what did they agree on? Boom, there's my singularity. The one thing in regard to this question that the greatest minds who've ever lived agree is the answer. There's nothing like that, because everybody else is just using AI to come up with the answers. And the AI doesn't come up with the same kind of answers as this does. And so it's a human answer, but it was discovered through AI. And so it will, and then it will say, this is, that's if you do the Omni function that looks for all people. And then it'll actually goes to the next thing and says, and here's how you can apply it to your life. So that makes it into a, not just information, but a coaching protocol. And so you just follow these steps. And then I thought, how much better can I make this? What if you don't want everybody's opinion? What if you just want to be, what if you wanted to coach with, I mentioned Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu or the Dalai Lama or Oprah Winfrey? You can type in their name and it will search the database of everything ever entered by or about them. And it will look for and figure out what they've already said or what they would most likely have said. And it will say, so-and-so would most likely have said, or it will actually provide quotes. So you can be coached now, not just by me, because it'll do it with me too. It'll tell you what I would say. I mean, you can ask it about, what would Mark Fournier say about overcoming overwhelm? And it'll go find everything I've ever said. It'll tell you overwhelm is the result of looking at too many things at a time and saying to yourself, I can't handle this. So eliminate one or the other or both of them. And boom, your overwhelm's gone. Because I've done it where it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I would say. And so,
That's amazing.
So now you can be coached by anyone on earth for free. You can even be coached by fictitious characters. My daughter went in and she asked, what would Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games say about the value of family? It went right into the storyline. It said she would say that family is more important than everything and anything. In fact, she went to the point of even sacrificing her own life to protect her little sister. And it's like, so what's great is that I designed it in conjunction with ChatGPT. So my little portal, my little piece at the front that tells AI what to do gets to stay the same. But ChatGPT, it was 3. We released this thing 2 months after ChatGPT 3 came out in November 2 years ago. So I can literally, legitimately say I have the world's first AI driven business and personal coaching app, because I've been working on it for so many years. As soon as I heard that they had announced it, I went to my entire team and said, now take all of this stuff I've been doing and get this thing in an app and get it out. But now it's gone ChatGPT 3 and then 4, the answers were even better. Now 5, the answers are even better. So as AI expands, it just keeps getting better and better. The challenge I have is that now they charge for every hit. You get 200 hits or something free each month. Well, in order for this thing to go viral, it cost me millions of dollars. Who knows how much it would cost me for every single hit. So we had to actually pull it off the air until we could go in and find AdMob and things that we could attach to it that would monetize it just enough to pay for itself. This is all run through my nonprofit. It's a 501c3, Limitless University. So I'm not doing this to make money. I just need to be able to break even. And so actually my team right now is they're setting up the as of today. By the time you put this on air, it may be already taken care of. Like if you went there today, it might not come up because we had to pull it offline. But all you do is just go to your app store and just type in Omni Coach, and it'll come in and you'll be able to do it. So whether it's today or within a month, we will have that nut cracked, and everybody on earth will have access to the greatest minds and the greatest coaches who've ever lived.
Wow, that is super exciting. I know that offline we talked about something that Omni Coach revealed to you that I don't know if it was shocking or if it was just interesting, but what is the one thing that you've discovered from playing with that AI about humans?
You know what I think, when we look at the questions that are asked and we get to see they keep on asking the same questions again and again and again, and two things came of that. Is one is that, look at this divided world, this divided country, and everyone's focusing on what their differences are. But if you were to list every single characteristic, every thought, every concern, everything there is that makes up the human condition, that makes up each of us, you'd find that there were about 100 million things that are identical and about 10 things that are different. And so you start realizing that we are infinitely more alike than we are different. And if we could focus on our common interests and our similarities and the things that we all agree on, we would be in an entirely different place. And I also saw that a lot of the answers that were coming back from AI involved relationships. In fact, we figured it's about 4 out of every 5 answers came back to how to navigate and manage more empowered or more effective relationships. That seems to be the greatest concern of all, involves relationship.
That's so powerful. One of the things that baffles me even about myself is I can be extremely compassionate, and I'll see somebody being cruel to another human being, and sometimes it'll just bring me to tears.
Yeah.
And then I find myself being such a jerk or such an ass. Maybe I'm not outwardly treating somebody that way, but I'm thinking it. And I stop and I'm like, man, what in the world is going on with me? But what you just said there, I think if we could all really grasp at a heart level that our struggles, no matter who we are or where we are so similar as human beings on this planet, the amount of love and acceptance and compassion we would have for each other would just skyrocket.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. It's what the world needs now, right? Love, sweet love. Is that love?
Sweet love.
Go back to John Lennon, love is all you need. It's if we could just understand love for what it truly is, and instead of thinking of it in a romantic context, love is acceptance.
And, speaking of acceptance, Mark, I've heard you say that a really great statement, which is you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. And really powerful. So what's behind that for me, when I heard you say that was, it's because we have limited amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. I can't add 6 more hours to my day, 30 more hours to my week.
100 more years to your life.
100 more years to your life. Right. So how does your relationship with time impact your life? How do you navigate that with all of these things that you'd like to do?
It's another great question, because that's the one area where I feel the most limited. I use the word resources. Some people think resource means money. A resource is anything you have that will help you get what you want. So resources can be time, money, connections, knowledge, information. It can be fortitude. It can be some, physical health. I mean, we have lots of resources, but that's where I started to realize most resources do have some degree of limitation, not infinite. We don't have access to infinite time or infinite wealth and so on. But ultimately, time, as they say, is the great equalizer. It's not how much time you have, it's what you do with it. And so for me, it goes back to that interesting balance. And as you said earlier, this idea of having, work-life balance is an illusion. Well, sustaining work-life balance is an illusion. And, without making it an effort, it's more like spinning plates. You have to keep on going back and spin that plate again. Otherwise, it starts to wobble. So you see those plates spinning until they finally wobble and fall over one way or the other. But if you go back and keep on working it, then you can bring it. This part's too low. It starts to come up and that comes down and okay, it's balanced again. And so this idea of continually finding balance in your life makes it challenging because this is the time I have. And if I spend too much of it on this thing, then I'm going to be missing out on this. And so it's not about getting more time, obviously. It's about making good choices with the time I have. And I'm certainly, with my OCD, I mean, I've got every system you can think of. I've got lots of time management protocols. You're from Arizona, so you may know who Rita Davenport is. She had a television show for some time. In fact, I coach Rita and have worked with her for some 40 years. She put me on put me on her television show when I was 19. And so I'm almost 70. So whatever that was, like almost 50 years ago. And she was famous for her books on time management. And so since I was working with her, I got to study and learn all about time management, incorporated that into my life. But ultimately I realized that we've got to look at time not as I don't have enough, but am I using it? Am I spending it on the right thing? And so I'm always asking that question. If I'm sitting there watching a movie in the middle of the day, right? I might turn it on while I'm doing dishes. And so the TV's on and I finish dishes and I'm going to go back and do something, but I got caught up in this show, right? But I've got lots of energy and it's beautiful out today. And the pickleball club's having a tournament. And am I spending this time on the thing in the best way possible? And if we keep asking that ourselves of that, it can have a real impact on because if you think of it as it's something I'm spending, like a finite amount of, I've got 10 coins in my purse, and I can, when they're gone, they're gone. And so I'm not going to blow them all on candy canes if I haven't eaten today. So,
right. There's a technique that I learned years ago when it came to, most of us trade at some point in our lives, we trade time for dollars.
Oh yeah. We sell our time.
Yeah. And so, I don't know where this came from, but I learned like, all right, if I'm going to make a purchase, right? One of the easiest ways for me to determine whether or not that's something that I want is like, okay, let's say somebody's making, $20 an hour and they want to go, buy a shirt that's $100.
There's
then you look at that shirt and you don't look at it as $100. You look at it, this is 5 hours of my life.
Yeah.
Is this
beautiful?
And, it's because I do the same thing that you just mentioned. Like, is this the highest and the best use of my time? But for me, I like to analyze. I'm an analyzing controller. And so that can hurt me too, because then I just go back and forth because some things aren't cut and dry. The candy cane example you gave is so good, right? I haven't eaten today. I'm not going to spend all my money on candy canes.
Yeah.
But
best use of my time doesn't have to be the most lucrative use. Best use could be watching television, watching a movie at 9:00 at night when I'm exhausted, my brain is fried, I'm not sleepy, but there's nothing left and I can't think clearly enough to do another darn thing that's productive. The best use of my time is to chill out and watch a great inspiring movie. It doesn't have to be something that we see as being highly valued and important, just like Stephen Covey's four quadrants. Quadrant 2 is important but not yet urgent. And people say, so TV watching, that would be in 3 or 4, which is not important, or urgent but not important, or not important or urgent. I go, no, there are times when just chilling and just letting your body just relax. That's important. How you do it could be with a television show. So I'm sorry, I'm just building on what you're saying.
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
In terms of where do I spend that time? We just want to avoid thinking that spending that time, it has to be on something that's highly valued by society. It could be, like I said, going out in the backyard and working on your garden to grow, lemon basil. That's not a good use of my time, or is it?
Where is it?
No one can decide that but me.
Yeah. When I think about in like things that I've spent my time doing, there were many moments where I was sitting with my wife or somebody, maybe watching TV or doing something, but my brain is like, man, you really got to get XYZ done. And I was able to interrupt that and say, no, this is good. What I'm doing is good. And then down the road, many years later, guess what I remember? That time that I spent sitting there at that play or with the family doing something that at the moment everything inside of me was trying to drive me to go do something productive.
Yep.
And
just got to be productive.
Yeah. And I can't even tell you like how many things I've accomplished that I will never even remember doing.
Yeah.
But those little moments that didn't seem that important are the ones that stick with me.
I love it. Oh, I love that. My childhood, I remember lying in bed on Sunday night with my mom. We'd all climb in on her bed and we'd watch I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, and The Wonderful World of Disney. And those memories to me are more powerful than any vacation we ever went on, any other thing that I could possibly dredge up, because that was a bonding experience. It wasn't about whether Jeannie was going to turn somebody into a squirrel. It was all about our family being together, just because my mom worked 2 shifts and we just didn't have much time with her. So it was quality time over quantity. And yeah, what is it? I love that you mentioned the word productive, because we keep thinking I've got to be productive. I call them productive-aholics instead of workaholics, because it doesn't have to be always work. It can be, right, painting the kitchen. It could be, any number of things. And that's where we get to say, actually, being productive is only one area of importance. There are other things that are not measured in productivity that are just as important to us.
So, Mark, what would you say are the areas that are really the most crucial for us to look at and pay attention to in our lives? This idea of productivity that you just mentioned. Are there other things that come to mind that you typically introduce to your clients?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, when you just look at different areas of life, health and fitness is important. Eating nutritionally is not technically productive. What I'm eating, I'm not necessarily doing anything productive, but I'm certainly taking better care of my body. But how about leisure is one of the 10 categories. We, all work and no play makes
Jack a dull boy.
Dull boy, however that goes. Yeah. And so it's relationships, just lying there and holding somebody is not productive, but it can be priceless. And our emotional health and well-being. I read 2 hours every day, and sometimes I'm reading material that will help me be a better coach, and that's productive. Sometimes I'm just trying to understand the world and trying to just see into the minds of the collective human state, and I'm just trying to learn. And it's something that I may never use, and I don't know if it's productive. So it's, once again, it comes back to, is this improving the quality of my life? Now, that's not always productive, but it's valuable. how is this, or I'll say, or the value of, or the quality of my life or the life of others. And that's kind of my, my bottom line, my baseline is, as long as what I'm doing is somehow improving the quality of my life or the life of others, I'm good, whatever it is.
That's a really powerful point there. In business, one of the things I've had a coach say when he's talking about how I'm spending my time, he said, Tony, I want you to ask yourself, is this moving the boat forward? Are you rowing the boat forward, or are you spinning in circles? And
Yeah.
because we cannot add more time. We can do time management and all those fun things, but we all have encounters with people that may not be best for our life, right? Maybe there's the word flying around. We talk about people being toxic. How does a person identify who they really ought to allow themselves to be around, and, who to cut out of their life, and what kind of, characteristics have been present in the people that you've had to distance yourself from?
Yeah. Oh, it's another great question. Victims. People with a victim mindset have a tendency to avoid responsibility. They have a tendency to either be what I call hopeless and helpless, and so they are continually, their ego engages, and it's continually trying to get others to buy into their hopeless, helpless state. And so those are the ones that we say they just feel sorry for themselves and so on. They're not looking for answers or solutions. They're not really trying to improve their life. They just want to be validated in their story that their life is bad and it sucks. And so those people can certainly drain the life out of anyone. And oddly enough, as a coach, I attract people like that because they're under the guise of they want me to help them, but I quickly recognize which people are looking for our personal growth and which are just looking to be validated in the fact that their life sucks. And so when I realize that they're not interested in growing, I spend less time with those. And then there's the other. So I call those passive victims. My life sucks. It's my fault. There's nothing I can do about it. And then there are what I call aggressive victims, which are, it's my life sucks and it's your fault, or it's the fault of the government, or it's the fault of this president or that president, or my parents' fault, and they're blamers. And they are looking for validation too, because they want you to agree that their problems are because of this person. And so if you don't agree, and it goes on long enough, they'll start looking at you, because their ego gets engaged, and ego wants everybody to agree. And so, and it's your fault. And so I usually avoid spending time with victims, whether they're passive or aggressive blamers, because I know I'm not going to contribute to their life, and I refuse to fuel their belief system. I won't placate, and since I know I'm not going to, I have to be true to myself. I feel like this isn't improving the quality of my life or the quality of this other person's life, and so it goes back to that. And so those are the folks that I usually spend considerably less time with. And I may not just call them out. I might just call them less.
Yeah. That victimhood can be insidious.
And we all have victim states, but it doesn't mean we have a true victim mindset.
Yes.
Mindset is, that's where you live. Victim moments, well, okay, so I felt sorry for myself for a few minutes. That's more like an attitude. Attitudes can come and go and change every 5 minutes. But a mindset is, this is how I see the world.
Yeah, that's such an important distinction. I'm so glad that you made that, because a person that's truly got that mindset, they are exhausting to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll suck the life out of you looking for your validation. And if you don't agree, they can become more and more aggressive. So if you don't agree that their life sucks and it's terrible, poor thing, or their life sucks and it's this person or that person's fault, all they want is for you to agree that their life sucks. And of course, for me, it's like, yeah, but that's on you. Your life is just like everybody else has got a life. We've all got problems, but it's all up here. Well, you can't tell that to a victim. They don't want to accept that the issue is with their mindset and their stories and their beliefs. are causing them almost all of their pain and suffering. I love to say that it's almost never about the world around us. Unless, you stub your toe and you're jumping up and down yelling, okay, you get a bye. You are really in pain and really is the fault of stubbing your toe, and that's real. But 99% of it is really just how you're viewing it. It's just the lens through which you're viewing, and that's the thing you have control over. So as much as a victim hates hearing that it's all in their head, a person with growth mindset loves hearing it because they go, so in other words, I can fix this. I can do something about this. I don't need anybody else to fix this.
That's great. So one of the things I've been very interested in my life, which has helped me transform, is emotional intelligence. And
yes, you have a high EQ. I can see that.
Oh, wow.
Hence your questions alone. But yeah, you definitely, I think a great podcaster has to have a high EQ. And so that serves you. I love that you understand and appreciate the value of it. EQ is more important than IQ. It's been proven in study after study. A lot of intelligent, miserable people out there, but people who have a high EQ are significantly happier across the board.
Yeah, I read a study months ago about the EQs of some of the top CEOs and those that were the most successful. And it was because they had such great people skills.
Yeah,
and
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. Warren Buffett's got a high EQ.
Oh, yeah, very high EQ. Oprah Winfrey, very high EQ.
Yeah. And so this, that ties into self-awareness and this consciousness. And one of the things I've noticed and maybe it's been going on for a long time, but it's only been apparent to me in the last 4 or 5 years, is people, back in the 60s and the 70s, people were experimenting with drugs because they said it would, it alter your consciousness and, take you into a different state, which it did.
Yep.
But now we're moving more into where some of these plant medicines and
microdosing.
Yeah. These things like this are being used as, actual therapies. And I don't know, cure is a little bit strong of a word, but I've heard some people say that doing, using this type of
psilocybin medicine, ketamine, psilocybin, even LSD microdosing. Yeah, it's big.
Correct. Have you ever used any of these things with clients or as part of coaching or?
Another great question. I would say that I would have been inclined to try them because I'm always looking for more and more answers. But as you mentioned, back in the 60s and 70s, so when I was in 9th grade, my older brother had a bad acid trip, and I had never tried any kind of psychedelics, but it destroyed his brain. To this day, he's still alive, but it triggered so many issues that he's tried to commit suicide 3 times so far, and so on, and it messed him up. It was an acid trip that lasted for days and days, and fried his nervous system. And so having seen that, I made a decision that there would be certain things that I probably wouldn't mess around with just in case. Something that could alter my nervous system or alter my consciousness in a negative way. So I took a much more pedestrian approach, which is studying and learning and absorbing knowledge and information and growing, kind of, we could say, the long, slow route. And once I reached the point that I'm in now, and it's come back so strong, like psilocybin microdosing and so on, my clients started asking me about this. And I said, I've done the research and I can see that there is potentially some real benefits. Some people have had immediate breakthroughs. My process, you coach with me for a year and I need a year. I will transform your life beyond recognition. You'll look back at who you were when we first started and go, I don't even know that guy anymore. But it takes me a year. If you can do it in one day, more power to you. And so I just say, hey, let me know how it goes. I probably won't go there just because I'm the happiest, most fulfilled person I know. So it's kind of like, it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
So I could maybe go to another level. Wouldn't that be interesting? But what if it backfired? I start thinking I've got so much to lose because I love where I am. So I may just keep growing more slowly. And if my clients surpass me because they happen to have a great ketamine experience, then wow, how exciting. What I can tell you is, since probably at any given time, because it's really big in the millennial communities, at any given time, 50% of my clients are trying something. What I found is most of the time, they don't have their complete life transformed. Usually they'll have, like with ketamine, they'll have a brief um, improvement in their life. They'll see things differently. They'll feel differently. It has a tendency to start wearing off most of the time, and then they'll try something new, or they'll go back for another treatment. And I'm always interested. I've had a couple of clients say that their life was changed forever from a couple of psilocybin experiences. I have quite a few who've gone through ayahuasca experiences, and they tell me about how they're throwing up all night. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but what did you get out of it? And so they'll say, I got some interesting things. So I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, well, listen, if you feel compelled to try it, I'd be more likely to suggest microdosing, because it's not all or nothing. You're less likely to do anything that's really going to mess you up. And I played around with microdosing and still play around with it. I just haven't tried it, but I'm interested. And because I'm a science guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't teach anything that I haven't already done or experienced, seen firsthand again and again and again. That's why I don't do the woo-woo stuff. It's like, no, I need to know before I pass this on. I'm not a gossip guy. I need to know that it works. And so right now I'm watching my clients, and I'm seeing enough positive signs to say there's probably a point where I'll try something, just because I want to know, is this another way that I can help my clients? What other tools are out there so I can pass it along? But I wouldn't be taking it for myself as much, simply because it's working already. And but I am always looking for ways to help my clients. So what's been your experience, or have you tried any of it more recently?
Both. I have a past experience with addiction, and so I'm very cautious about putting anything into my body. Like, I don't even take occasionally. A rare occasion. I think it's been a year since I had a Tylenol, and I was in a lot of pain when I took it. So
I thought you were going to say heroin. It's been a while since I've done heroin.
No. So, I've had friends. So I've got one friend who struggled with, I want to say depression, and maybe some like bipolar sort of issues, and for years was on all of these, prescription medications. And a few years ago decided he wanted to get off of those things, and went and did I guess you go down to Peru to do these ayahuasca treatments.
Yep.
And
That's
he came
one of
back and he told me almost exactly what you were describing, running around in the jungle naked, throwing up, seeing all this stuff, but it somehow transformed him. He did another one. He did 2 of these, and he's not taking any of those medications anymore. So for him, it worked.
Yeah.
Now, I have another person that I know, they keep going back to it. And I'm thinking, like, you said, you had this experience, and because that experience took them into a different state of being, different state of mind, that was away from where they're worn in patterns of thinking and behaving. It was different. They felt some relief. They want to keep going back to that place. Now, to me, that rings too similarly to addiction, which what I know. And
if you have to keep doing it in order for it to work, especially obviously if you have to keep doing more and more of it, then you really know you're in trouble.
Yeah.
As
So
the body alternates.
I don't poo-poo any of that stuff in its entirety. I'm open to, sometimes things work for people, but I'm also of the mindset that just because it's becoming popular doesn't mean that it's.
Yeah. I'm not a fad guy.
Yeah.
I'm a tried and proven guy.
See these ketamine clinics and things popping up all over the place, and it's like, yeah,
for me, the jury's still out on some of that stuff.
Yeah, we're on the same of the same mindset.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm interested. As long as we're open-minded, right? As long as it's like, well, I'm eager to see what happens. So I stay open to everything. That's one of my part of my mindset is this: anything is possible. Let me know. And when I make a statement, I don't hesitate to say, and I could be wrong, especially if I'm talking about an opinion. I'm not less likely to say it if I'm just passing on a universal principle that's been proven for thousands of years. But I'm happy to say it. Well, and I could be wrong. If we can go through life reminding ourselves that we could be wrong, we're more likely to stay open to just about everything. I'll tell that's
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
My friends, I spend my summers in Michigan and my winters out here in Arizona. And so I have different sets of friends and out here, a lot of my friends are very conservative. In Michigan, a lot of them
Are they liberal or are they not?
liberal. Thank you. Yeah, it just stuck in my head. And so, yeah, a lot of them are very liberal. I'm centrist by nature. So I'm just that guy in the middle saying, you know what? You make some really good points. And then some of those things sound crazy. You make some good points. Some of those things sound crazy. But ultimately, when they start to really dig their heels in, I say, you know what? We can talk about anything you like, including politics, as long as at the end of your statements, you're willing to say, and I could be wrong. That shuts them up. They're like,
Yeah.
but I'm not wrong. I say, well, then we're not having this conversation because it's not a conversation. It's a lecture. As long as you're not willing to say, and I could be wrong, it's a lecture. And no, I'd just rather just enjoy my dinner and not go through a lecture tonight. And that's really eye-opening for them. And, I say, and I could be wrong and we can talk about it. But we don't want to be wrong.
Nobody wants to be wrong. Everybody wants to be right. But those 4 little words are so powerful in diffusing conflict.
Yes.
Oh, I think about, I put those on a lot of the sensitive posts that I make on Facebook. There are a few things where I do believe that my position and my belief about things are the truth if we look at the data.
Yeah.
But there's very few of those, right?
Yeah.
So
very few of what I call facts. Because because if your answer is it depends, well, then it's not a fact.
Correct.
Even the sun is hot. You ask an astrophysicist, is the sun hot? And he'll say it depends on what? On whether you're comparing it to an ice cube or an even bigger sun or a red giant, right?
See? Yeah.
So even that fact, yeah. So you can say it depends on almost everything. Well, that changes the whole universe because if it's not a fact, then what is it? It's an interpretation. And I have control of my interpretation. So I'm going to use ones that serve me. Wow. Right? You can't say there's almost nothing that you can't say as an absolute. Math is one of the few exceptions. And now they're even proving that there are certain things, 1 + 1 = 2. Is that always true? And you'll have some mathematicians say, well, not under these circumstances. And you go, wow. So living your life as if nothing is a fact and it's all just a matter of perception is the closest you'll ever come to getting control of your life. Knowing that the only thing I can control are my thoughts. In fact, I give the definition of empowerment versus enlightenment. I say empowerment is having the ability to influence the world around you. And that's where the earth is right now. We're trying to empower women, empower individuals, trying to help them have more control over the world around them, make more money in the workplace and so on. And that's fine, but you can never control the world around you. It's always going to be out there. Do your best. Enlightenment is having the ability to influence the world within. And we live 99% of our life is in here. And what's beautiful about it is not only is it 99% versus 1%, but this one we can actually control. So which one is more important, empowerment or enlightenment? Well, there's no comparison. And I'll do some things with clients. We'll help empower them in some areas, but it's mostly enlightenment. We're going to change the way you see the world, the way you experience life. And I'm going to show you how to take control of the thoughts and stories and beliefs that are in control of everything you think, feel, and do.
That's so good, Mark. You've mentioned obviously your mission,
what you want to do in the world. And when you look around and you see what's happening right now, is there anything that really concerns you about human beings, about the world at large?
Well, yeah, one thing is, I'm always concerned when I open the refrigerator, if I find out that the leftovers from Ruth's Chris have been eaten by somebody else.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah.
I'm concerned that somebody ate my leftovers. Damn it. I could say I'm not terrified, but that's too strong a word, but you didn't mention it. You mentioned concern, which is better, because to me, terrified is to assume that it's something that we can't handle it, or we can't recover from it. But I happen to believe that human beings we're the most resourceful, survival driven entities in the known universe. I mean, we don't know about other planets, but we do know that there was a movie called Starman with Jeff Bridges.
Bridges?
Yeah,
Bridges?
yeah. And he was from another planet, and they asked him, because he'd seen lots of life forms on all sorts of different planets, and they said, "Is there anything unique or special about human beings?" And he said, "Yes, you are at your best when things are worse." And that does kind of sum us up. So I kind of look at all these problems that we're creating around the world, and I go, yeah, we're good at creating problems, but we're also good at solving them. And so that's what keeps me from being terrified. But still, ultimately, my greatest concern is that human beings, that we will not evolve fast enough to overcome our primitive instincts. And these primitive instincts, driven by fear, by even survival, things that cause us to move into war. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to know that most of the wars on this planet were one way or another, directly or indirectly, involved at some form of religion. And so there are certain primitive instincts around religion when you look at where did it first begin and what created that. And so what's happening is our technology is surpassing our evolution as a species exponentially. And so, which is why I come back and say my greatest mission is to raise human consciousness, is because I'm trying to keep it up. So it keeps up with technology. It's what will keep us from using technology or to in ways that will possibly, very negatively impact mankind. I don't think that I look at climate change and so on. I don't think that the world itself is going to be destroyed, but it could certainly become inhabitable for humans. And I'd rather not see that happen. But it's not just about climate change. It's about our level of consciousness that it is driving the potential. I mean, at this very moment, there are four nuclear powers at war. This very moment. A lot could go wrong very, very quickly, because there's now that North Korea has jumped in with Russia. We've got North Korea and Russia. We've got Israel, and we've got Iran, who are on the precipice of nuclear power. So I look at that. I'm not terrified of nuclear weapons. I'm more concerned about the human beings who are in control of them, in control of AI. There's all sorts of things that can go right or wrong with AI. But in the right hands, nuclear weapons are not a threat. In the right hands, AI is not a threat. There's so many things that would not be an issue if they were in the right hands. So what are the right hands? And to me, it is an enlightened human being. See, enlightened human beings, they don't abuse. And I'm not talking about child abuse. I'm talking about they don't abuse themselves. They don't abuse others. They don't abuse the planet. They make choices, in fact, and they don't even allow abuse within their sphere of influence. And if the whole world were populated by enlightened beings, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would just all be looking for more and more exciting experiences.
Right. That's so good. This raising the state of consciousness, I think, for me, there's these moments of clarity where I see something. And, as a best-selling author and, being a coach for all these years, I'm sure that you've had moments like that, something that was an epiphany, almost life-changing. Can you think of anything that came up for you during maybe a coaching session with somebody, or just even work that you were doing in your own preparation that was really life-changing for you?
So yeah, I have the 4 pillars, which is know thyself, followed by self-acceptance, followed by speaking, being true to thyself, and followed by speaking thy truth. So first you've got to know thyself. Who am I? And then you've got to accept yourself. I'm this person with all these strengths and weaknesses, plenty of flaws, and that's all good. I'm good with it. And then be true to yourself. These are the things, just like that actress who realized she wasn't being true to herself. She was just acting so that she could try to prove to the world that she was okay, but she didn't even like it. So once she started to be true to herself, she moved on and started doing other things. And then ultimately, speak thy truth, which is when we see in a movie, the hero stands up and says what they believe in, even though they know they're going to be ostracized, they know that they're going to be booed or they're going to be put in front of the firing squad, whatever it is, they still say what they believe in. And they're heroes, and we love it when they do that because we don't do that. Most of us are afraid to really speak our truth, but we know how invaluable it is, so we admire those who can. And I was teaching that principle to someone and realized that I was in a very unhappy and toxic marriage, and realized that I was not being true to myself, much less speaking my truth. And I asked for a divorce the very next day. So I saw that I wasn't applying those principles to every area of my life. So I'd have to say that's probably the biggest that I can think of to that answer to that question.
Well, that's huge.
But so, yeah, no, this is a marriage that lasted between the marriage and divorce period process about 20 years. So, and I'd say most of that time I was unhappy, but I had the disease that a lot of coaches have, which is I can fix this. See, at the time I thought that I could fix anything. I'm Mark Fournier. I can fix anything and I can fix anyone. Of course, I don't fix people anymore. Once I realized that nobody's broken. We're just humans. There's nothing to fix. I can show you how to be happier and more fulfilled, but there's nothing to fix. If you've got issues that are causing you pain and suffering, I'll help you get rid of them. So I realized it's not about fixing people. And then I also realized not everyone's compatible. Instead of it being, oh, you're bad and I'm good, it's, you know what? We just don't, not everybody really should be living in the same house if your values aren't in alignment and so on and so forth. But I didn't know that at the time. It was, she's bad and I'm good.
Right.
Just since then, now when I'm coaching clients who have relationship issues, I say, listen, well, can you fix our marriage? And I go, well, wait, whoa, hold on. Let's first of all figure out what's going on, what's behind all of that. And is the problem really the marriage, or is it that you guys are just not compatible? Or is it this or that? And I say, in the end, I can help you both find greater peace, joy, and happiness, whether it's together or apart. Let's let your happiness and fulfillment be more important than the institution. And then we end up usually finding the right answers.
What's the most profound transformation you've seen in a client that still kind of gives you chills or goosebumps?
Okay, the most profound. Okay, I have one that I can't name names because it was a very highly publicized. There was, let's just say, there were events that were involved, court and hearings and prison, and it was very, very highly publicized. So I can't go into any details, but I can say that when this happened, it actually it divided a family between the side that committed what was considered to be atrocities and the side that experienced what was considered to be, they were the recipients of these atrocities, but it was a family that it happened to. And so they divided. And this person on this side hired me as a coach and was telling me about something, but I already knew about it because it was, like I said, highly publicized. I was very aware of it. And he was telling me about how horrible these people were and how they had the nerve to think that his family was the bad guys. And he was young when it all happened, so he didn't have anything to do with it, but he ended up in this divided family, which he said it had such an impact on his life and his happiness. And he was always struggling to try to work around it. And I said, would you like it to just go away? And he goes, well, that's not going to happen. This thing's been going on because it had happened 20 years earlier. So this has been going on for over 20 years. This is never going to be cured. It's not going away. I just want you to show me how to manage my life better around it. And I said, once again, would you like it to go away? I didn't ask if you believe it's possible. I just asked if you'd like it to. He goes, well, you mean if I could just make it so everything was fine and everybody was back and we just loved each other and it was all wonderful? Well, yeah, but that's not going to happen. I said, but if it could, would you be interested? And he says, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, if it could. So I used this program, this thing I call the glass box, and it comes, and it's my way of describing our individual consciousness, how we see the world. Like our consciousness is surrounded by 6 glass sides. And at first we're looking out through the glass at the world as it truly is. But we're infants and we have no understanding. But very quickly we start experiencing life and we start realizing things like being hungry is bad. So we put a sticky pad on the glass to remind us being hungry is bad, being cold is bad, being fed is good, being warm is good, being this and that. And we start forming all of these opinions about the world, putting up these sticky notes everywhere until by the time we're teenagers, the walls are covered. And we can no longer see the world for what it is. We no longer see reality. We only see our reality, which is just walls and walls of opinions, of observations and perceptions. And so now what we do is we live our lives according to these things. And over time, we'll find reinforcements to prove that this is true. So we'll put sticky pads on top of sticky pads. And now it's getting thicker and thicker. And then somebody comes in our life and they behave in a way that makes no sense to us. That person is bad. They're stupid. They're bad. They're this, they're that. And we're judging them based on what's in our box. Well, what's inside of their glass box isn't the same as yours. They're looking at a whole different set of sticky pads. You'll have some where you both have the same sticky pads, but they've got different opinions and so on. And so what you're doing is 100% appropriate for what's in your box. What they're doing is 100% appropriate for what's in their box. In fact, if I took you out of your box and put you in theirs, and that's all you knew, you would do exactly what they did. So 2 different sides of the family, they're in a different box than you. That's why you can't understand each other. It's why you can't come together. Because your box is, what's inside of your boxes is so different that it makes the other person seem absolutely evil. But what if you could see the world through their eyes? What if you saw everything? What if you saw what was in their box? What if you saw through their lenses? Is it possible that suddenly everything that they say and think and feel would make total sense to you? And he's going, well, yeah, I guess, but how am I going to do that? I said, it's easy. Reverse engineer it. What would you need to believe in order to think that these people were evil? What would you need to believe in order to behave exactly as they do? He says, well, I'd need to believe that this person that really did this horrible thing, and this person was horrible, and if you believed all that, how would you treat these people? Terribly. I want you to go in there and live in that for a moment. And as he did it, he started to realize, oh my gosh, seeing through another person's lens became like life-changing. And within 24 hours, I sent him over as an assignment. He went over and he met with them. They hadn't spoken in 20 years, his entire family. And he went with this mindset, and it changed everything. And it was like our second coaching call. And he immediately goes online. He says, his entire annual fee is already paid. He says, I've already got my money's worth in one day. And so it was wonderful to see how powerful it can be to learn to see the world through the eyes of another without judgment. Because I always tell my clients, I'm not going to judge you. You can tell me anything. I shot my neighbor's dog. I'm not going to go, oh, then you're evil. I'll say, wow, what would it take to drive somebody to shoot their neighbor's dog? Tell me, help me understand. Because I'm sure that in your mind, what you did made sense to you at the time. And by the time I'm done with them, it's like everything they tell me, I'm like, oh, I got it. I understand. That makes sense. Well, how can I judge you for doing exactly what I would do if I were you?
So powerful. That is like a whole different perspective on walk a mile in another person's moccasins.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's
I mean,
truly,
I was on a stage the day after 9/11, and they were all wanting me to condemn these terrorists and say, obviously there is evil in the world. It's about evil. And it was obviously there's evil in the world and these people are evil and so on. And I just said, oh, you guys aren't going to want to hear this. They just so badly wanted me to condemn these guys. And I said, I can condemn their behavior, but not the individuals. And they're like, how can you say this? And I said, it's real simple. What's your definition of a hero? And we kind of put out some of the characteristics, and it was like, this is a hero, somebody who does this and this. I said, how about if that hero was willing to sacrifice their life for what they believe in? Oh, yeah. What if they believed that there were a bunch of evil people who are going to destroy the world, and they were willing to sacrifice their life to try to stop them from doing it? Would that be a hero? They go, yeah. I said, well, that's what the terrorists were. They were raised to believe that we are evil and that they were saving the world from us. And they sacrificed their lives to try to save the world from the evil Western society. It's all they knew. It's all they knew. They've been raised that way since birth. How can I condemn them for doing something I wouldn't sacrifice my life for it. I mean, geez, I'll do a few podcasts to save the world, but I'm not going to commit suicide over it. So, and even still, they struggle. I've been told 100 times, don't bring up the World Trade Center. It just really freaks people out. And I think, you know what, though? I can't think of a better example of how everyone does what they think is right for them. And I guarantee they died believing they were the heroes.
Yep. Yep. That's so good. We're coming to the end of our time. We've talked so long. I appreciate you being so generous with your time today. There's a couple other things I want to just talk to you about. Number one is you have, a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about that? And,
Sure.
the start of that, was there something that broke your heart that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was raised, as I said, I haven't had an easy life, and I don't keep that a secret, because if my clients start thinking that I can't relate to them, then I'll lose them. They need to know I've been there. Almost anything my clients have come up with, especially the millennials. I mean, I'm almost 70. I've had 19 major surgeries. I've got 2 more I'm going in for in the next 3 weeks. It's like, okay, you name it, I've been there, baby. And so my mom married a very, very abusive alcoholic when I was 10, and it was pretty bad. And so, but something I learned growing up was physical abuse is the one they really think about, but psychological abuse is infinitely worse. You'll heal from a broken arm in 6 weeks, but you'll spend 60 years trying to heal from a broken heart, from being told that you're not enough, that you're a failure, that you're all the terrible things that can be said. And my stepdad, 6'3", 280 pounds, and I was really small for my age. And so it didn't take much for him to knock me across the room. He could just, throw a shoulder and I'd go flying. But that was nothing. I was terrified of him, but it was mostly the continuous badgering and continuous name calling and things that just undermined my self-confidence. And so I decided I wanted to do a public service ad and about child abuse, and I wanted it to be about psychological abuse and the importance of that. And so I picked an agency who happens, actually their main office is right around the corner from you in Chandler. It's called the Child Crisis Center. And this was in 1984. And I brought together all my film guys who owed me and just said, hey guys, I need you to donate a day so we can produce this film. And it was based on a child who was hiding in the attic from his father. And because as I used to hide in the attic from my stepdad. And the father comes home and sees a bicycle in this middle of the driveway, and he's just pissed off, and he's going through the house trying to find him. As the music is building and swelling, the kid's hiding in the attic, and dad's looking for him. And it started out with "Angry Words" was the name of the piece, and the lyrics and so on. I eventually did a longer version called "Dad Had a Bad Day." And that was an Emmy piece. And so I produced this piece and got it running, and I put the phone number of the Child Crisis Center up, and this thing broke every record. It was the second most aired piece. The only thing that aired more was the eggs in a pan. This is your brain. This is your brain on on drugs. Yeah, that one's the only one that beat us out. But we got so much airplay, and it was just something. It was a thing. And I just thought, I'm glad I did that. I wasn't at the time thinking, I'm going to start doing all this. I'm going to save the world. It was just one thing I just felt that I needed to do. But one day in front of our offices, all these vans pull up, the doors are opening in the front lobby, and I hear all these little voices. And then all of a sudden I hear singing, and come down the hallway into my office, come this group of about 24 little kids, and they've got this banner and these cookies, and they're singing this song they made up for me, and and it packs the room, and they're all sitting there, and the director of the agency walks up, and she comes up and she whispers to me, and I gotta be able to say this without crying. And she said, "Count them." And so you'd think I'd know the number now, but I'm pretty sure it was 24. She said, "With the money that we've raised so far off of your commercial, we built 24 beds. We've added an extra, we put in an extra wing on the building. We put in 24 beds. If it weren't for you, every one of these kids would have been sent home." I was like, oh my God. I mean, I can really make a difference. I wasn't just doing something to purge myself. It was like, I actually saw tangible results. And that changed my life forever. And so we started a whole division, and you name them: Child Help USA, and Make-A-Wish, and Red Cross, and United Way. And I mean, that was a whole division. It was didn't make any money on it, I'll tell you that. Sometimes they'd have a little budget, United Way, give us $5,000, and I'd spend $50 trying to get the piece right. So it was not lucrative. But that changed my life forever. And so at some point in there, I said, well, if I'm going to be spending all this money on it, I need to have a nonprofit so that I can write the stuff off properly. So we opened up a nonprofit, and it's gone through several name changes. But more recently, the name was changed to Limitless University. And its purpose is because that's the goal, is I'm using Limitless University to raise human consciousness in any way I can. And so ultimately it will be populated not only with my own information and teachings and videos, but with the videos and teachings of others, of all the individuals. Kind of like the idea came from the way that Bill Gates created the Bill Gates Foundation and challenged all the other billionaires to give away their wealth. And it was like, just at some point, donate your wealth to Bill Gates Foundation, and we will manage it and make sure that the world gets changed with it. I thought, well, what if we could do that with knowledge and insight? And I could get the Tony Robbins of the world. See, we all have, you're an author, we all have backlogs. We have books that didn't sell, sitting in storage buildings, and CDs. Your brother, if I could say his name, Joe Polish, has probably got, cassettes. Boxes and boxes. We all have stuff that's just collecting dust that is no longer, we're not selling it, or we've just moved to a new lesson. We're selling this instead. But this stuff is still viable and it's valuable. And so the idea of getting them all, donate all this stuff, get it to us, and we'll get it out to the world so that everyone has access to it, whether they have any money or not. And so that's the purpose of Limitless University, is to help the world get access. And of course, Omni Coach is a part of it, and so on, but to help them gain access to insights that could transform the way they see the world. And ultimately, everybody who becomes enlightened becomes a part of the solution.
Man, that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Wow, what an incredible, that's just fills my heart with joy to hear that. And I had like this other question I was going to ask you. Now it almost seems silly, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because maybe there's something else, and the question was, well, there's two actually.
Yeah.
What's the most heroic thing you've done that no one knows about?
Well,
I'll
that's
not give them both to you at the same time. That's one.
Yeah. All right. Um, it's an interesting question, I suppose, without allowing hubris to consume my ego. Because what's heroic, right? We're all doing what we can, and that no one knows about. You know, Probably, but this is a very personal thing. My children will probably never know because I would never have told them what it took, but they'll probably never realize that over that 5.5 year divorce, that I ultimately gave everything I had for custody so that I could be there for them. I mean, everything, mansions and millions. And the idea of starting over at 60 was by choice. It's because, I could have easily just, you see, in Illinois, mom gets the kids. That's just the law. Dad gets visitation. And, every other weekend and Wednesday afternoon, I was like, that's not going to happen. Well, I could, you can't fight City Hall. So millions and millions of dollars later, I finally realized that I was never going to get that. And the price that I paid in the pursuit of custody, they'll never know, and they don't need to know. More importantly is I have no regrets. I'd do it all over again. Just because if nothing else, I can go to bed at night and know I fought for my kids. And, that was worth it. So not heroic to the world, but perhaps for my kids and who I can tell you, my gosh, if they turned out to be something. And so maybe that's the second thing is I just got an email from my daughter who's, there was a challenge taking place for Thanksgiving is with all divided families spending Thanksgiving, Christmas, and so on with dad or with mom. Sure. And so I went to this little victim state because I was going, you know what, I've bent over enough. We've been planning this for 6 months, and her response was so beautiful. It was so brilliant. She validated my feelings. She's like, Daddy, I know you've been so wonderful. You've done everything for us. And I just, I so appreciate you. And then she went into, and yet here's what my experience is. And she told me her feelings. And, I've been playing in the middle person for a long time too. And then she validated me again. By the time she's done, I'm crying and I'm sending her saying, okay, honey, okay. Oh my God. Not only did she win, I was like, I am so proud of you. So proud of who you've become. You're more enlightened than I am. I love this. And so I'm like, there is proof that as parents, they are listening. And believe me, the old saying, no one is a prophet in their own home. My kids are not going to listen to this podcast. They're not reading my books. I mean, I'm just dad. And you're thinking, I still remember when my daughter was like 10 years or 8 years old and there was a teaching moment. She'd done something wrong. And, and I'm just lecturing her. I'm like, well, this happens when you do that and you do this. And I don't believe in corporal punishment. So I'm doing all this and it goes on for like 20 minutes. And she finally rolls her eyes and she goes, Dad, can't you just hit me and get it over with?
Oh my gosh.
So there's that.
That is funny.
But they're listening. So she turned out to absorb all these things that I teach, even though she's never gone through a course or probably ever read a single one of my books. But they're listening and they're watching. And so, being a parent can be pretty heroic in itself.
Yeah. And, you qualified your answer, without letting ego get in the way. And, the whole reason I do this show is I don't think about heroism as Superman, or in my case, Iron Man, flying down, and like stealing the show and getting all the glory. To me, a hero is the guy that jumps out of the car in the middle of the freeway to try and pull somebody out of a burning vehicle. And then the paramedics arrive, or the firemen arrive, and the person's there and he takes over, and this guy gets back in his car and takes off. And
nobody knows.
People are like, who was that?
Who was that masked man?
And then on the news, like unidentified man, blah, blah, blah. and the guy doesn't care, right?
It just isn't. Yes. He did the right thing for the right reason. I love saying what you do isn't nearly as important as why and how you do it.
Yeah. And I want people to be inspired to stand up and be the hero in their own lives, their own business, to do the right thing, to do whatever it takes, to realize that, any of us are capable of doing heroic things. And that doesn't mean that we're going to get all this glory and notoriety for doing it.
Right.
But, so my understanding and my intention with this hero motif,
which I love,
is, like, do your best. You step into areas where maybe you don't think you're qualified. We mentioned, Jesus quite a few times. And like, if you think about the story of what he did and who he called, he didn't call the qualified. He didn't go to the religious leaders of the day and say, come join me, let's start this movement. He went to the unqualified. So it's not really the qualified that are called. Sometimes, it's the unqualified that are called, and any of us are capable of great things, which leads me to my last question. And Mark, we could talk for another hour because there's just so much.
I've loved this. My gosh, we're going on 3 hours.
Yeah. Who do you want to
plenty of content to throw out?
Sure. Yeah. Who do you want to be a hero to at this point in your life and going forward?
You know what? This is, I've been teaching my clients of late, and we talk about their greatest achievement. And everybody wants to leave a legacy. That's, not everyone, but it certainly is admirable. And I've been trying to help them understand that ultimately, if you can say at the end of your life that who you are right here and now, the day you die, who you have become, that you are your greatest achievement, that's how you'll know that you've had the greatest impact that you could possibly have, because the best in all of us is capable of, as you said, amazing things. And if we spend our entire lives asking the question, and how can I be better? I used to do this with my kids. Still, they just do it automatically now. What do you want for Father's Day? And I'd say, I just want a card from you. On one side, I want you to tell me what you love about our relationship. And on the other side, I want you to tell me how I can be better. How can I be a better dad? And so if you could live your life asking, how can I be a better husband or dad or neighbor or anything? How can I be the best that I can be? That's ultimately turns you into being your greatest hero. Who would my hero be? I love that in your website, you've got a picture of you looking like Tony Stark. It's great because it fused Tony Stark and things about him that you find exciting and interesting with you. So it's the you version of Tony Stark, and let that be, the hero that you want to be isn't somebody else. It's the best version of you, because that's the one that you're going to live with.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Mark Fournier, you have been an amazing, just an amazing gift today. How can listeners find out more about you? You've got best-selling books. You've created so many impactful resources for people. Where can people go to find out about you and contact you?
Well, thank you very much for that. Mark Fournier Presents. If you type those 3 words into a Google search, it'll get you to all sorts of places. I'm sure you'll put my spelling up on the screen so they can figure out how to spell it. It's French.
Yeah, I'll link everything below. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So Mark Fournier Presents will get you to most of the things. TheLimitlessCoach.com will certainly get you to my coaching site. And, there's an app that I created to help people find out if their life is in balance and where it's in or out of balance. So that's a fun thing. You can feel free to go to, and it's free, to go to your app store, Android or Apple, and just type in life balance test. and take that life balance test. It's just another way for me to contribute to the world. And whatever your score is, don't worry about the high scores. It's the lowest scores that you want to bring up, even if it means the higher scores come down a little bit because you're not putting as much energy into them. That's okay. A person who scores a 5 in all 10 areas is much happier than a person who has 5 10s and 5 1s. I don't care if you're a trillionaire, if your child just committed suicide or your wife is leaving you or you're 70 pounds overweight, you're not happy. Yeah. So it's not about the American Western quest to be the best at all costs. I'm the opposite of that. I'm like going, not at all costs. Don't be the best at all costs. Be the best that you can be at, and across the board. So anyhow, back to that's it. You don't need a lot of other ways to reach me. That'll usually find a way in. If you want to send me an email, it's just mark@fournierinc.com. So INC. So mark@fournierinc.com.
All right. I'll have all those linked below if you're on a platform where you can see those. And if you're not, then you can go to one of the platforms where you can see it and it'll be linked below. But Mark, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, Tony, are you kidding? I don't do 3-hour interviews. But this has been, I looked at the clock. I thought there's no way. This just flew by, which is great. That's flow. That's where we want to live our lives. And I've enjoyed every minute of this.
I really appreciate it. You definitely are a hero. And I know that everyone listening is going to get a lot of benefit out of what you shared today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you for tuning into Hero Up. I hope today's episode challenged you to step up as a hero in your field and provided you with valuable insights to express your unique voice and message. If you found this episode helpful and motivating, please leave a review and share it with your friends and family. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes and amazing guests. Until next time, find your voice, share your message, live your mission.